So I used to catch a lot of heat at the barbershop when I was a prosecutor, man, because the brother's like, "Are you the police?" I'm like, "Man, I'm not the police, man. I'm not arresting nobody. You know, I'm
Hey,
just trying to do my job."
In the barbershop, they're saying you the
Yeah,
police.
yeah, but you know,
change the
but
conversation.
In the
Keep here.
barbershop,
They said change the
we got Keith
conversation.
here.
Keep here.
We can't
Yep.
talk.
Yep.
We can't talk. We can't
we
talk with
can't
Keith
talk,
here.
right? But to be honest, I would challenge them. I would say, we want to have a fair shake. Don't you want somebody in a position to drop charges and to have context that look like you? Don't you want somebody that
Mm,
understands that just because you got
mm.
locks that don't mean nothing? That's a hairstyle. Don't you want somebody to understand that the tattoos don't define who you are? And when I would hit them with that, they'd be like, "Yeah, you're right, Keith. You're right."
We'll discuss race and how it plays a factor, and how we didn't even talk about this topic because we were afraid.
A Black executive perspective.
BEP is on fire. Our audience is growing fast and the impact is real. Now is the time for your brand to grow with us and reach a highly engaged, influential community with real spending power. Don't miss this moment. Email us today at media@TonyTidbit.com. Let's make it happen and put you and your brand in front of the people that matter. We are coming to you live from our new BEP studio for another thought-provoking episode of a Black Executive Perspective podcast, a safe space where we discuss all matters regarding race, culture, and those uncomfortable topics people tend to avoid. I'm your host, Tony Tidbit.
And I'm your co-host, Chris P. Reed. Before we get started, we always like to give a shout out to our partners at Code M Magazine. Code M, whose mission is saving the Black family by first saving the Black man. Check them out at codemmagazine2ms.com.
Definitely check them out. And so let me ask everybody this question, and it's probably happened to a lot of us. What happens when your first dream dies? Do you give up? Or does something change? Does something deeper inside become alive? And more importantly, it takes you to a whole nother level that you never even thought that was your journey or that was a path for you. Well, today we have criminal defense attorney, juvenile court judge, and podcast host Keith B. Johnson to share his extraordinary journey from a devastating football industry in Augusta, Georgia, to becoming a nationally respected criminal defense attorney and legal analyst. Keith will share why the courtroom became both his battlefield and his ministry, the weight of carrying other people's freedom, and how faith sustained him through pressure. As a father, mentor, and cultural voice, Keith will also discuss legacy, raising Black boys into kings, and what it means to keep showing up even when life feels like fire.
Before we jump into it, I'm going to give a quick synopsis or bio of Keith just so you can get a baseline of who he is and where he comes from. Keith Johnson is a nationally respected criminal defense attorney, juvenile court justice, legal analyst, podcast host, and the father of two, proud father of two. He has been featured in USA Today, New York Post, Newsweek, The Washington Post, The Daily Mirror, and is known for his bold advocacy and cultural voice. A former football starter at Furman University, Keith was appointed juvenile court judge at the tender age of 30. He later became the first Black male president of the Augusta Bar Association in 2018, and in 2021, the first Black chief judge of the Augusta Circuit Juvenile Court. He's recognized by Super Lawyers Magazine, you know what I'm saying, from 2017 to 2025, holding it down. The name and is named among the top 100 criminal defense attorneys in America by the National Trial Lawyers Association. He has built a reputation for excellence in the courtroom and beyond in the community. Keith is also the creator of the Lawyers Lounge, where he meets culture with current studies and events and does public leadership. And he was studying public leadership, or is studying public leadership, at Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Keith has everything except a partridge in a pear tree. Keith Johnson, welcome to a Black Executive Perspective podcast.
Thank you for having me on. You have a great podcast, a great platform. You talk about real issues in the community and beyond, and give a perspective that is rich and it's sensitive to our culture. So I'm glad to be on, and I'm glad to share a little bit of my thoughts and my story.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into it, tell us a little bit about where you currently reside and a little bit about your family. I know you got the two kids, but tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I am in Augusta, Georgia. I'm in the deep South. I have two wonderful children. I have a 13-year-old daughter, so I'm in the teenage years. She just turned 13 a few weeks ago, and I have a 10-year-old son. And so, beyond the courtroom, I do like to coach youth football. My son is a little football player, so it's just always good to have that impact with the kids in the community, and it just brightens up my day because some of my days can be heavy.
Buddy, I can imagine, right? But number one, let's just back up a second, bro. Um, as Chris was going through your bio, I mean, you are well accomplished. I mean, all the things that you have achieved at a young age, and these are things that people never ever get to. Okay, the first black male president, the first black chief judge. All these things, the top 100 criminal defense attorneys in America. Buddy, those are great accolades. And you sound so, humble and, talking about your son's football, you're the coach and you doing all this
Yeah,
stuff. That is, that is awesome, man. That is
thank you.
beautiful. And so look, bro, based on this, yeah, we got you. We thank you because you're making differences in lives with your family and outside your family as well. But this is the thing, buddy. You're a busy guy.
Yeah.
Just going through your bio, you're all over the place. You have a lot of clients. You're networking. You have a family. And I even know right now you probably have meetings right after
I
this.
do.
You probably had meetings before this. You're traveling. So tell us, why did you want to come on a Black Executive Perspective podcast to talk about this topic?
It's time to rethink your protein. AgriLab's protein bars are crafted with high-quality protein, double the leucine, and enriched branched-chain amino acids, essential for optimal muscle recovery. Finally, a protein bar that works as hard as you do. So visit agrilabs.com and use the code BEP to get 20% off. That's agrilabs.com, promo code BEP.
Well, this is a very important topic because I do feel like people need to understand that when your life takes a bit of a turn, you can use that in a way that's positive. But also, talking to like-minded brothers is super important because of the familiarity. Even if we don't know each other, we all have similar stories, similar goals, and visions. And I do believe in the power of you know men getting together, being honest, and trying to not only encourage each other but the next generation, so that we can put a footprint in the sand for the next generation to understand what it really means to lead and to really have a vision for the future. And so, what a great platform to come on. I've got my own podcast as well, so I understand the work that goes into hosting a podcast, and you all do great work. And it's just a great opportunity. So, thank you.
Buddy, no, thank you. And look, this dude is shaking. He's chomping at the bit to talk about it. You ready to dive into this, my brother?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's talk about it then.
All right, so I believe, and I often say that every superhero has an origin story. And so I know you say you currently reside in Augusta with all these accolades and accomplishments, but you also grew up there. Like, you a hometown boy, you homegrown.
Yeah,
What was it like coming from the South? And you've been different places and seen many things,
yeah.
but being able to come up in that environment, how was that, and how did that start the spark for who you end up becoming as a community leader, parent, and
hmm
professional?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. So, grew up in a really strong household. Mom and dad were hard workers. My mom was a school teacher, taught school for 41 years. My dad was in the insurance industry. So I always knew that education was important. And so that was a really big foundation for me. Also, just growing up with an idea of faith in God, that was the next pillar of my life. And so athletics was always important to me from the age of 5 or 6 years old. In the deep South, you know, Christianity is a religion, but also football. And for young boys growing up down here, especially when I played, because it was a little bit of a different game. Um, that's how we learned our life lessons. That's how we learned discipline, teamwork, and things like that. And so that served as the foundation of my upbringing. I'm the oldest child. I have a younger sister as well, who's 5 years younger. So I was a big brother. And so I always knew the weight of responsibility. But I grew up normal. I didn't have any silver spoon. We were firmly in the middle class, but definitely I had dreams and goals on the field before I transitioned as a young man. But I had a great upbringing. Challenges that I had along the path were more so just the normal things that you have to go through to develop as a young man and as a young person. So I would say that I was really, really blessed. And so that's why when I encounter young people in my practice who didn't have the same kind of foundation that I have, my heart goes out to them, because sometimes the things that I took for granted that I learned from my father or from my grandfather, some of these young boys just don't have that frame of reference. And so, definitely I try to remember where I came from. It gives me a source of strength. And the ironic part is that I run into a lot of people that I know and knew back before my law career. And so that's an interesting, um, uh, you know, aspect of practicing law in your hometown.
Oh, you run into them professionally.
Oh yeah, I
Well,
do.
he didn't
Meaning
say
they
that.
need,
I
meaning they need
do.
your assistance.
They
Oh,
need
He
okay.
didn't
help.
say
And
that.
so,
No,
Picnic
no,
with
no.
me.
hey,
Not at the
Yeah,
picnic
they
with
need
me.
help now, right? You know what I'm saying? Hell, bro, can you got some bail money?
yeah,
Okay,
exactly. You
okay,
better,
okay, okay,
because I can't
okay,
do
That's how,
everything for
that's what
free.
he's saying.
okay, okay,
You know
okay.
that's right,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Okay.
But buddy, let me ask you this, man. So everything you said is great. So look, we're 100% right. The foundation of all of us. To be fair, I had a coaching client that I just got off the phone with a few hours ago, and she's dealing with self-esteem issues, right? And I was trying to get her. I said, "Where do you think this come from?" And she's like, "Oh, kids when I was young, they used to tease me about being overweight and blah 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 and this and that." And I said, "Okay, that makes sense." I said, "But what about your parents?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, my mother used to say I should lose a few pounds and blah blah blah." And I said, "Stop right there." All right. Because at the end of the day, kids are always going to tease other kids about anything,
Mhm.
right? But it's the parents. If your parents are telling you you're fat or you're this and that, and they keep bringing it up, you're going to believe more of that than anything. And a lot of times our issues start back when we were a child,
Yeah,
right? So having somebody that provides a solid foundation and somebody that is going to, teach us and provide lessons is valuable, right? Here's the thing though. Sometimes life is not about A through Z. And some of the things our parents teach us, right? All of a sudden, life comes up and says, nah, 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 nah. All right. So you talked about earlier you being a football star,
yeah,
and you looked at being playing football, right? And you looked at football being your identity, and it was going to take you somewhere. But then all of a sudden, something happened,
yeah.
and it changed the trajectory of your life and the whole 9 yards. So, and this is a thing that probably your parents didn't dive into, and you had to figure out on your own. So, talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
my brother.
Yeah, man. So the pivotal moment came for me my senior year in high school. I was 17 years old. I was being highly recruited by some of the top football programs in the country. I was rated pretty high as a defensive back in my high school class, and so I had worked so hard my whole young life to try to get to that point. And so when I first started getting the correspondence from the Ohio States and from, the Georgias of the world and Clemson's, it was surreal.
What about Michigan? Did Michigan reach out
It
to
was
you?
not,
Did Michigan reach out to
no,
you?
but I did get some Michigan love, but from Michigan State when I went to law school there. But I didn't hear from the
Okay,
Wolverines,
but I
man.
don't want to hear about Michigan State. You know what I'm
Listen,
saying? You this dude gonna throw out
Ohio
a wait a
State,
minute. You can't throw
the
Ohio State out when there's a Michigan dude on here, right? You can't do that, right? And so, but I get it.
yeah,
But evidently you were a talented brother, right? You for Ohio State
yeah,
and Georgia
yeah.
to be showing you love. You were one of the top D1 prospects.
I was, and so I was having a great start to my senior year. And so, this is 25 years ago, where the scholarship process is vastly different now. Schools now offer you based on potential. And a lot of times back when I, played, you could earn a scholarship your senior year by having a really good year. A lot of times now that's already spoken for. These kids are well past that stage. And so I started out my senior year with a bang. In 4 games, I had 4 interceptions. I was really, really playing well. And I got injured at practice, catching a pass. I played both ways. I was bracing my fall. I fractured my forearm, just like that. Boom.
Oh, okay.
Emergency surgery.
Okay.
I'm going to the hospital with shoulder pads on, like I'm just devastated. D- Really don't even grasp what's going on until I see my parents in the hospital room. And so they told me that my senior year was over, just like that. Very matter of fact, I was asking if I could play with a cast on. I was asking all kind of stuff, but I couldn't do it. And so I began to see how those bigger programs stopped calling as much. They stopped writing as much. And it was a very low point in my young life because it didn't make sense. It wasn't fair. I had always been taught that if you work hard, you do the right thing, you put it in the good Lord's hands, that good things are gonna come. And so that was really my first wilderness experience of my life, where I had to trust that the thing that I loved, next to God and my family, was football, and it was taken away from me. I saw guys who, I felt like I was better than, getting accolades and postseason awards and making these all-star teams. And so I was fortunate enough to still get a football scholarship, but to a smaller school at Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina, because I had played well prior years. They had enough film and footage to feel good about me, and it wasn't a knee injury. But it permanently changed something within me. I really began to live my life in a way where I had a sense of urgency. Because, see, on the day that I got hurt, it was just a regular Tuesday practice. It wasn't under the lights. I wasn't making a game-saving play. And so it taught me that you never know when the last time is the last time. You never know when that opportunity is going to close. And so I made a promise to myself through like a lot of tears, man. I ain't here to 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 make it seem like I was just all calm and trusting. I was bitter. I was upset, but in the process of that, when I did get an opportunity to play again and really to do anything of any consequence, I always realized and remembered what it felt like to be overlooked, what it felt like to feel like, something was taken away from you. And so that created in me also the thought that football is not going to be forever. They take the jersey away from all of us at some point. For some of those lucky guys, is when you retire on your own terms. For some other guys, it's when you get cut. And for some others, they don't even make it, past the high school level. And so that's a reality for everybody who plays any athletics. And so when I was in college, I still was playing and I still had, a good career. Uh, I had in the back of my mind, what's my second act? And I had teammates who had one goal, and that's to make it to the NFL. But I saw that, that's not guaranteed. I had a firsthand experience with it not being guaranteed. So by the time I was 19, 20 years old, I already knew that this was not something that could always carry you for the rest of your life. And so I began to really look into what I wanted to do next. And football gave me, the start, and law had a lot of similarities that I was able to kind of transition and use the competitiveness and all those things and channel that in another way, in a productive way. So,
Let me ask you this question. How long did it take for you to transfer your love? Because Saint, I had a very, very similar story, probably 20 years before you had yours. But I was in school playing football, and I remember a recruiter from Wisconsin came like my beginning of my junior year and said, "Hey, you got to get your grades up if you want to come play for us." And I graduated with 3.4, right? Like I loved football. Like whatever they said
yeah,
was gonna happen if it had to do with me in
yeah.
football. But then but I messed up my knee dunking a basketball. Anyway, but the long story short, I ended up going to a smaller school and
Wow.
played for a little bit. But it was a emotional roller coaster and
Yeah,
tumultuous to have something I had poured so much into be taken away from me.
yeah,
And I had to have conversations with myself, my mama, and
yeah,
God
yeah,
about transitioning that love and that dedication into academics. Academics became very easy when you approached it like you approached ball, right? But
yes,
I had to realize I actually love being smart and dispensing information and this and that, but I had to have that same passion for the classroom. Was it a
yes.
quick switch with your mama being a teacher, or was it
Yeah,
hard to let you see you could be seen in a different light or known for? I would go home. I would go home 8 years later. People like, you still balling? No,
yeah,
I'm gonna go home.
yeah.
So when you become identified with a certain thing,
Of
how
course.
was that emotionally for you to transition to what you end up falling in love with and dedicating your life to?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we have a lot of similarities, man. So my transition was not overnight at all. So I went to Furman.
Okay.
I didn't know what I wanted to
Okay.
major in. I had no idea. I didn't grow up around any lawyers, and
Okay.
I actually grew up with a speech impediment. So
Okay.
I grew up not being fluent with my speech. I had a nervous stutter, and you know how kids can be, man. They were brutal. I mean, they
Absolutely.
were brutal. So the last thing
Absolutely.
that I wanted to do was to stand up in front of
And
somebody
talk for money.
and
Right,
talk.
right, right.
That's what I'm gonna do every day, man. Come on, man. No, like you can't
He
make
said
this
kids are
up.
brutal.
Yeah, you can't make this up,
Right.
right? But as I got into my second year at Furman, I had to declare a major, and I majored in history, and I had some good teachers who were able to
Me too.
pour. Oh man, listen, man, you like my soul
Me
brother.
too, bro. Me too, bro. I got a degree in history.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. So then I took some political science classes and really
Yep.
fell in love with the Constitution. And I
Yep.
approached law school like I did athletics. And so when my
Yep.
classmates would complain about all the work, I'm like, listen, we in class for like 3 hours a day. I don't have to go to practice. I ain't got to lift weights. I ain't got to go to training room because my ankle hurt. I gotta watch film. All I gotta do is just study for maybe a couple hours, and it's only 5 o'clock.
That's it. That's
So I
it.
took that time management and the mindset that you have to have in athletics, especially any high level athletics, and I tried to transition that
Yep.
into law. And so as I got
Yep.
into it and people told me that I could do it, then I got more confidence. But I didn't have that confidence from the jump. I remember some of my teammates were like, "You want to be a what? A lawyer? Man, come on, Keith. Now you know, man, what?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So internally, I actually use that as motivation. Like I just got crazy with it. I'm like,
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna show y'all, I'm not gonna fail. I'm not gonna fail. And so it all worked together, but it was a heck of a transition, going from that defensive back mindset to, okay, I can be great and make an impact in another way that's cool, you know?
Buddy, so let me ask you this though. So what did your friends say? Because number one, you said they were like, "You're gonna be a lawyer?
Yeah,
Come on, Keith, no, man." And then you proved them wrong. You used it as motivation. But then they found out you were a prosecutor.
yeah,
What did they say to that?
man, listen,
All right.
yeah.
And then, but more importantly, tell me, what did they say? And then what did you learn about being a prosecutor from the system?
Absolutely. So I used to catch a lot of heat at the barbershop when I was a prosecutor, man, because the brother's like, "Are you the police?" I'm like, "Man, I'm not the police, man. I'm not arresting nobody. You know,
Hey,
I'm just trying to do my job."
In the barbershop, they're saying you the
Yeah,
police.
yeah, but you know,
change the
but
conversation.
In the
Keep here.
barbershop,
They said change
well,
the
we got Keith
conversation.
here.
Keep
We
here.
can't
Yep.
talk.
Yeah.
We can't talk. We can't
we
talk with
can't
Keith
talk,
here.
right? But to be honest, I would challenge him. I would say, we want to have a fair shake. Don't you want somebody in a position to drop charges and to have context that look like you? Don't you want somebody that
Mm,
understands that just because you got
mm,
locks that don't mean nothing? That's a hairstyle. Don't you want somebody to understand that the tattoos don't define who you are? And when I would hit them with that, they'd be like,
mm.
"Yeah, you're right, Keith. You're right." So I always tried to approach it like I'm doing my job. I'm not trying to be anybody's moral authority. If I can help you out and if I can give you a second chance, absolutely. But if you injure somebody, if you're violent, if you've shown no ability to live among us, then I have to do my job. But ultimately, the judge sentences cases and the jury makes the decision. But I always wanted to make sure that regardless of the case, if somebody were to look back on it, they would see that I handled it in a professional way, and I didn't try to abuse any power. And I would try to see that maybe this kid needs a second chance. So I'm proud of that. I was a prosecutor for 4 years. It actually showed me kind of like a peek behind the curtain, how investigations work, how to prepare for a trial. So I was able to actually use that when I transitioned into private practice on the defense side. But those years as a prosecutor were invaluable to me.
Let me ask you this. You resonated a level of assurance and confidence when you talked about when you was in your bag as a DB. When did you catch up to that as an attorney
Mm.
and feel like what was your pivotal moment where you said, "Oh, I can be all state in this, right? I can
I'm
Yeah,
good at
I'm
this.
good at this.
I'm good at this.
I'm
yeah,
great.
man.
I'm one of
That
them
is,
ones."
yeah, that's a great question. Um, I
Thank you.
think that it actually came when I was in private practice. I had a case in 2018, 2019, where I represented a young um, man who was 17 years old, and he was charged with shooting an off-duty police officer. It was a very, very contentious case. It
Mm,
was one that was political, obviously, for local reasons, but also one where he was looking at a life sentence. And I developed a relationship with him because I couldn't get him out of jail on bond. So from the ages of
mm,
17 to 19, I would go see him and just, try to even if I didn't have an update on the case, have a relationship with him. And so we had that jury trial, and I was able to win that trial. And it was a really, really big deal here locally. And I was able to see, man, like I went up against the system, just me. They had a team of
mm-hmm,
prosecutors, about three or
mm-hmm,
four of them boys over there,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
and we whipped them. And so whenever you're
mm-hmm,
able to get a good outcome and then see the impact that it has on a client that becomes more than a client. Like at that point, he was a little brother to me at that point in time.
mm-hmm,
Right.
That's when I was able to have my
Right.
confidence because, like you said, you have to have confidence in a courtroom, just like you do in that defensive backfield. Just like I tell my young
mm-hmm.
son when I'm coaching, he's a corner too. I say, you have to have a short memory.
Okay.
You're going to get beat sometimes at corner, but you have to get up and say, he got me that time, but I'm better than him. And we about to see it again.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm gonna show up because we don't want to make one bad play, two bad plays. And so the short-term memory
Absolutely.
has actually helped me as a defense attorney because you have to keep in mind as a defense attorney, you know, most of my clients have been in trouble before. Sometimes they
Mm-hmm,
really are guilty. And so you don't
mm-hmm,
always win, but you can lessen the impact of what they were going to get with good
mm-hmm,
advocacy. And
mm-hmm,
so sports has always just
mm-hmm,
just played
Right.
a major role in my development. And I preach that on my podcast. I think that all young boys and girls should play sports. Whether you're good or not,
mm-hmm,
that doesn't matter. It's
mm-hmm,
about you being on a team, the discipline, the perseverance, all those things that you all know. And so I try to preach that as well.
That is awesome, buddy. Let me ask you this. So you were a prosecutor in Augusta, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Were there other prosecutors that were people of color?
So when I was at the district attorney's office from 2009 to 2013, we had three black prosecutors in the office of 25 to 30 lawyers. So it wasn't a lot. I was the only
Okay.
black male there the entire time. And so going back to the barbershop thing and catching heat, it's a little uncomfortable when you the only black man and 90% of the people that the office is prosecuting are black men, you know? And so I felt like I had a responsibility to carry myself in a certain way, because some of my colleagues, their interactions with people like me were when those, men were coming into court in jail garb and shackled. And so that was very important.
The reason I asked my brother, one of the things is, in corporate, when you have a senior position, there's only a few of you there, right? And then obviously, and again, this is not the same as being a prosecutor, but when I would interview, other people, other black people and stuff for jobs, right? And sometimes nobody would say it, but they felt, and if I really like, hey, I think this person can actually do the job, blah, blah, blah. It was more like, does he really think they can do the job? Or is he just saying that because they're black?
Yeah.
Right? He's just trying to get them into the company, right? So being a prosecutor, and obviously, you got to prosecute black and brown people for whatever the offenses are, right? Did you run into that a little bit in terms of, oh, Keith is probably being soft on them because, they look like him and stuff to that? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, you would have those comments that it wasn't like they would come out and, say it, but it was
They're not
implicit,
saying it.
but they saying
Right.
it,
It's implicit. They're saying it, right? They're saying it, but they're not saying. Nobody said Tony just wants to bring them in.
exactly.
It's like now they're giving me the double talk about the dude's
That's
qualifications,
it.
and we know our people. We know what we know. We're gonna double vet them, right? So
Hmm.
if I'm recommending the
Yeah,
brother or the sister, trust me, I put them through the wash
exactly.
because I know what they're gonna have to go through for me to get them through, because they're gonna look at them twice as hard, right? So they don't say, I think this, but it's how they come across
Yeah.
that they think that.
If you like what you hear and want to join us on this journey of making uncomfortable conversations comfortable, please subscribe to a Black Executive Perspective podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe now to stay connected for more episodes that challenge, inspire, and lead the change.
And that's the weight of being the only one in the room sometimes. See, we all want to be in a position of leadership, but it comes with a weight that you are representative of a larger segment of your brethren, even when you're not trying to be. Not trying to be, I'm trying to go to work. But you have to embrace that if you want true leadership and if you want to set the example. Because I always say, if not me, who? And so I would always try to conduct my business in a way where in my world, if they look back at my file and want to know why I took certain action, I can justify every action that I took. Because if I were to reduce a case or dismiss a case or recommend probation, I was going to have a reason for doing that because it protected me, it protected the integrity of the case, and it protected the young person that I, was prosecuting at the time. And so we would have, meetings and strategize about picking a jury, and there would be comments, about, African Americans are not going to convict and things like that. And you have to be in those rooms, and sometimes you have to bite your tongue. And I remember sometimes getting in my car and I would call my mom and I'd be like, Mom, you won't believe what they were saying, because this was at the time where this was 2009. Okay, so let's like turn the clock back. I mean, I was getting chain emails.
Obama just became
I was getting
president.
chain emails about some birther
Right,
stuff, and I'm like, "Whoa! I'm fresh out of law school. This is what prosecutors
right,
are doing.
right,
Like,
right.
we're sending chain emails about whether he was born in America." So it was a rude awakening. Not everybody in the office was like that, so I want to be clear on that. But there were those
Right, right,
factions because they
right.
didn't understand the confidence that I had, because they had never seen that from somebody who looked like me. The people that they saw were coming in because they were
There's no question.
in trouble. So I tried to carry
Right.
myself in a way where, like you said, I'm here because of my credentials and because of, you know, my work ethic, not because of checking a box. And I wanted to always do my work in a manner that reflected that as well.
I'm gonna say something to you that as a player, is a cuss word, and that's fair, right? How did you get over it
Yeah.
being unfair? Because for you, what you represented, where you came from, you had to be twice as nice and understand the laws and make sure
Mm,
your stuff was tight because of the subjectivity in the South. And now I'm making a presumption because I'm from the North.
yeah.
In the South, I would assume that the subjectivity of the law, where you could prosecute this person, same rhetoric, same everything,
Yeah.
and they would get slap on the wrist. You prosecute that person, and all of a sudden, because of the hue of their skin, you're like,
Yeah.
hold up, why is this the recommendation? How
Yeah.
did you keep it tight and keep your faith in the fairness of the institution
Yeah.
while you were making sure you had all your stuff to where if it's ever reviewed, I did
Yeah.
exactly what the law entailed, as opposed to playing loose and fast?
Yeah. I just saw myself as an extension of the people who came before me. I use my grandfather as an example. He was born in 1937 in rural South Carolina.
Gotcha.
And I thought that
Okay.
the opportunities that I have, he would pray for. And he was so proud of me
Yep.
when I graduated from law school. And I knew that my worst day was nothing compared to his worst day in the early 50s when he was, coming through high school and things like that. He didn't have the opportunities to be an attorney like I did. So I knew that this was bigger than me, not to sound philosophical, but I really did
Mm-hmm.
think about my grandfather and those men and women like my grandmother who, took care of little white babies when her babies were at the house trying to take care of each other. Like that's real. That's not something that we heard about. Like that's my family lineage. And so what I was gonna not do is let anybody intimidate me. And I knew that if I could do my part, then things in my world could be affected for a positive change. And that's all I can do. And so I was, fortunate to become a prosecutor, but I quickly realized that I could have a greater impact outside of the government structure because they have rules, and I understand that. Like I couldn't do
Mm-hmm.
some of the activism that I'm able to do now when I represent the state of Georgia. And so it was a good start to my career, but I knew that it had a expiration date.
Buddy, so here's the thing though, right? And I love that mindset. And you're one of several other guests that we've had come on, and they stated exactly the same thing, right? In terms of when a situation got hot, they would look back at their lineage. I remember my sister, I forget her name, when she has a picture of her grandmother on the wall in her office.
Mm,
And she said when things would get hot, I think she was a lawyer as well, right? And she said when things got hot, she would look at her grandmother when sometimes when she felt like, do I really belong here,
mm,
when they were all over her. And she would look at that picture and look at her grandmother, and her grandmother would be looking back and say, yeah, you belong here,
mhm.
right? And now those things were able to get them over the hump. Let me ask you this, bro, because here's the kicker. You didn't let those things affect you. you did bring it every day. You had that competitiveness, right? And then back to Chris's point, you had that winning mindset. So tell us, how was it? What was it like to becoming a judge
Mm.
at 30 years old?
It was almost like, man, honestly, honestly, it was beyond my wildest expectations, and it was a situation where I was out of the district attorney's office, and I was working for a private law firm. And so the opportunity arose. I had built up a relationship with the judges when I was a prosecutor. And I didn't know that I was building capital. I was just trying to do my job, not embarrass my folks, not make the judge
Mm-hmm.
mad, just trying to do my work to the best of my ability. But in doing that, like I tell these young kids now, you never know who's looking. You never know who's like, who is that? And so when I got the phone call that there was a judgeship available, it still would allow me to practice law. So like that's why I'm still able to practice law, because my judgeship is in the juvenile court. I don't take cases there. I'm just on the bench there. So it was the best of both worlds. But I have to be honest with you, man. The I was 30 years old. You have to be 30 in order to statutorily qualify. Like, so I was one of the youngest in the state at the time, maybe even the country, I don't know. And so I just didn't want to mess it up. I don't have a great eloquent answer other than I just didn't want to mess it up. I don't want to have any scandal. I didn't want to have anybody saying, see, you let that young guy put a robe on and look at him. He driving drunk or whatever, fill in the blank. So a lot of times I had to make sure that I was conducting myself in a way that would make sure that I wasn't the first and last.
Keith, I love it, buddy. I love it. I love it, bro. I got to ask you this, though, because I know Chris wants to, but I just got it real quick. And I know you said it was juvenile court, right? But let me ask you this. Did any of those prosecutors that you worked with in your prior jobs, did they ever come before you in the juvenile court and now you're the judge?
They did. They did. They did. And, and
Tell us how tell us just real quick. How was that?
it was glorious. It was great. It really was.
Man, glorious.
Yeah, because sometimes when God elevates you, it's not your place to gloat
Hmm.
about it. You just do your job because it speaks for itself, and that's how you keep getting blessed. And so, even those ones who I knew where their heart was at, I still treated them the way that they should be treated in court as counselors. But I always wanted to do the best for the children, because a lot of times the children who were in front of me came from situations where it was unimaginable, where the 12-year-old was taking care of the 7-year-old and the 5-year-old because mama didn't come home from last night. And so you quickly realize the blessings that you have and that your problems are really not that big, really not that bad. And so that was really an opportunity for me as a young man to try to pour into some of these teenagers, because I wasn't that much older than them.
I uh I did want to ask you because I'm a court appointed child advocate, and so
Ah, okay.
going in there, you see such dismal and dire straits and things of that nature,
Hmm.
and I know that for me, from a career perspective, from a corporate perspective, my paranoia has served me well
Hmm.
throughout my career because I just
Hmm.
don't want to let mom and them down or let be the bad example or whatever the case may be. But how do you keep focused? And have you gotten to a point at any time in your career where you felt on base or you felt like you could take a breath and your
Mm.
history would speak enough for itself to where you're not chasing that? Because that's in sports, we always chasing that
I
rabbit,
was
chasing that rabbit.
chasing.
You're
I
only
was
as good as your
chasing.
last game,
I was
blah blah blah
chasing.
blah blah. Have you gotten to a point where you could sit back and fold your arms and take a sip of some sweet tea and be like, man,
Well,
whatever they might say about me,
yeah.
I've arrived. I'm good.
Yeah, man, that is such a great question, Chris. I have had moments where I sit back and I say, wow, I have really done well, and but then the thing about law, it really is like sports. And I tell people this. I was a defensive back. I'm a defense
Mm-hmm.
attorney. Um, we had a playbook
Mm-hmm.
when I played, and needed to know what they were going to run on third and long. That was my job.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have the
Mm-hmm.
police report. I need to know what that witness is going to say when he gets on the stand so I can know what to ask him and how to advise my client. And so the competitive nature of, sports helped me, but it also reminded me, to answer your question, that there's always the next case. So I have to be intentional
Yep.
about taking time out to thank God for the blessings and to look back and say, man, that was an amazing outcome that I was able to do for that person. The cool thing about being in a mid-sized town like this and being from here is that I run into people all the time that I've either helped or they know somebody that I've helped. And my children look at me sometime like, Dad, we just want we just want to go to Target, and who is this
Right.
person that knows you? And yeah, well, I represented her grandson and he's doing good now.
Right.
And so
Right.
those are the moments where I can pause and say, man, you did something with your life, man. But I also have in the back of my mind, as that former athlete, that maybe there's another level. And so that's why I wanted to transition to being more of a legal analyst, and
Mm-hmm.
try to tell the story on a national level, not just here in the courtrooms of Augusta. And so that prompted this next chapter. So I'm in year 16 of my law practice, and so I have had great success, but I think that there's so much more left. Being with brothers like you to help tell the story and help shine a light on what we could do for our young children, especially our young Black boys, is another step, I think, in the journey. Because I don't want to always be reactive and be the guy that they hire when something's bad. Let's try to be proactive and let's try to get these numbers down and give our young boys something to aspire to, something to be cool. It doesn't always have to be shooting a jumper to make it. You can make it by
Mm-hmm.
being smart and using your brain, to help yourself and help your family. And so, yeah, that's a great question.
Let, let, me- Let me ask one more question though, and this is personal for me. I need you to mentor me, and I know it's live action,
All
but how
right.
do you diminish the residue of some of the things that you hear and some of the experiences these young brothers and sisters is
Yeah.
having based on
Yeah.
the system, based on the
Yeah.
finances? Like you have
Yeah.
to go home with some of that on you.
You
Like working at a
do.
fish market, right? Like you
Yeah.
gotta you
Yeah.
gotta go home with some of that smell on you.
Yeah.
And how do you get that off, bro? To get in the bed? How do you get that off to get in front of your, what I'm saying, to get in front of your family? How do you kind of let that go for the next day?
Mhm.
Because like you
Yeah.
said, being a DB, it's about short term memory and hips. So how do you have a short term memory and get that off of you when lives are at stake?
Absolutely. It took me years. This is year 16, like I
Okay.
said. I
Me
think
too.
in
Me
the
too.
beginning, I didn't really know how I felt. I just knew I was agitated when I would
Mm-hmm.
come home. I just knew that I felt pressure that I couldn't unwind. And I think that it probably didn't have the best impact in my personal life as a younger man.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then I just had to really realize that, like, first, I'm not going to let this kill me. That's the first thing. Because I've seen older attorneys not really age well in this profession because the law practice can grind you up and spit you out. And
Mm-hmm.
when you run hard and run long, you need a break. We need to be on the charger just like we do, and we put our
Mm-hmm.
phones on the charger. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think over the course of years, I learned, for example, in 2022, I was completely burned out. I mean, I had a great 2021 after the pandemic. We didn't have any trials for about 12 to 14 months, all of 2020 into the first half of 2021. But then I had like two straight murder trials when the courts opened up, and I won them both, and it was a big deal. But I ran so hard and so long that I didn't want to look at a case. When I would come into my office, my stomach would hurt. you know? So I try to take time for
Right.
myself to have hobbies, to have things that are just away from a law. Because when you're good at something, you all know exactly what I'm about to say. When you're good at something, it's great to be identified with it. So people see me as, oh, that's the lawyer. But it's also
Hmm.
a burden to be identified with it because I don't always want to talk about your case when I see you, you know,
Right.
in the mall. I don't always want to
Right.
talk about your case when you send me something on Instagram because we went to school in third grade, you know? So you have to have boundaries about what you are willing to do so that you can help for longer. And so that's what I try to do. Coaching really helps me out a lot. Lastly, because I see so many negative things with our young people, it reinforces that there are so many kids who are doing the right thing. There are so many kids who are dreaming big dreams. There's so many kids who are working hard to just try to be something. And not everybody is in trouble. And so that's been good for me personally. And I hope I can impart some wisdom to those boys and teach them good football fundamentals so that when they go to middle school, I put them in the hands of a coach and they know how to get in 3-point stance. They know how to make a tackle with their head up. They know that you have to
Hmm.
play the game low, right? Just those fundamental
Yep.
things
Yep.
that help me get away from the pressure and the stress of a life sentence that my clients can be facing.
You know what's interesting though, as I'm sitting here listening to you, and it's fascinating. You know, you were saying, you know, when I was a kid, they used to tease me about how I talk,
Yeah,
and I got to stand up in front of people and chat. I don't see that happening now. And look at you now, you're chatting, you're
crazy.
doing all this stuff, but then you also created the Lawyers Lounge, right? So talk
Yeah.
to us a little bit about that, my brother.
Yeah. So the Lawyer's Lounge is my baby because it's something that, as you just said, I never would have thought about that I would willingly want to talk to people and use my voice in this way. But it was an endeavor that when you start something new, you never know how it's going to turn out. So it was a bit scary. I can't lie. But I had some great people encouraging me. I've got a great team. And so we try to tell inspiring stories. We try to shine a light on the positivity in the world because the things that get reported are not the only things that are happening. And so we try to focus on, how law can intersect with politics and culture and fatherhood. I have a passion for Black fathers and what it means to our youth, our families, our women, and so the Lawyers Lounge gives me a chance to kind of loosen up my tie a little bit, show a little bit of my personality that I don't live in a courtroom. You would be amazed at how many people just associate me with being serious and making objection and things like that. And so it's a chance to really tell inspiring stories, and it's been a blessing. So we had our first season. We kicked off in March. We filmed through August. We're going to take a break until January and kick back up um, with season 2.
That's what's up.
That's awesome, buddy.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Let me ask you this. One of your things, and we'll just go back to the football analogy, right? You got hurt, even going through your career, there was adversity. You said you looked to your grandfather and saw the things that wasn't that bad. And obviously, no matter how well things go, there's always going to be things that come up, right? And I want to say this quote that you came up with, and I want to get your thoughts on it. You said, and I quote, I kept showing up, and God kept making room. What does that mean right now for
Mhm.
people listening who might be watching this and they feel like, you know what, I've been throwing a curveball and I don't think I can make it. My dream is over, and they feel like quitting.
Yeah. Great question. That half the battle is showing up. A lot of people don't reach their potential because they quit, because they see things that are obstacles and think that they can't get past it. And so in my life, I just always had a foundation and a faith that God was going to take care of me. and that the things that happened, good or bad, were part of my whole story, and that I was not gonna stop because I didn't know what was around the corner. And so I want to really, you know, encourage people, no matter what you're going through, no matter how it seems, your life has a purpose, and your job is not to look to the past to analyze and to, try to right past wrongs. Your job is not to live in anxiety in the future and try to be the good Lord. That's not your job. Your job is to be present and to keep trying your showing up, doing your best, making the best decisions in the moment. Because in that space, you're showing honor, I think, to the big man upstairs, and you're definitely doing your part. Because that's all you could do. You can't do any more, you can't do any less. And so it sounds cliche sometimes, it sounds simple, but it really is true. You just have to have a steel in your spine. Like I try to tell my kids, nobody is better than you. You're not better than anybody else, but nobody's better than you. All you have to do is seek ye first God, right? Wake up in the morning, try to acknowledge him and let things fall in place. And so that's really been the story of my journey. Kind of, I like to say it's the best gift that I've ever been given was the gift of belief and thinking that I could do something beyond myself. Once again, I didn't grow up knowing any lawyers. Being a lawyer was what the rich kids was doing. It wasn't anything that people that I knew were doing. And definitely a little boy that was stuttering in the back of the class wasn't gonna be no, an attorney. And so it's a testament to just God's blessings and the people who've helped me along the way. So I am passionate about people just never quitting, always understanding that there's a bigger goal and that your perseverance can really, really help somebody else that you don't even know.
Man, it's a very powerful testimony, and I was just thinking, um, I don't know exactly how Augusta is, and Augusta is known for a couple things, golf, and
Golf,
we had a conversation about Mr. James Brown, Mr.
the
James Brown.
Godfather, the Godfather
Um,
soul.
yeah, right, right. But in the idea of, and I know you had good parents, you had a good foundation, you had good things going for yourself, and you created a level of ambition through sports, and then you transitioned that. How is it that it seems like even throughout that time when you reflect on your childhood, you had a level of humility about yourself? And at least I know where Tony's from in Detroit, where I'm from in Peoria, it's a situation where if you too humble, people will think you a simp. Like you gotta
Mm,
kind of talk loud, punch
mm,
the biggest person in the room,
mm.
beat on your chest.
Yeah.
How have you been able to balance that? And how do you
Ooh,
teach your boys, the kids you coach, to balance the level of humility with the level of audacity or the level of ambition? Because that is very tough from a
yeah,
black man, for people to
yeah.
receive that from a black man. Sometimes we can be too voiceful. We can show
Mhm.
too much moxie and it get us in trouble with the authorities, right? So how do you
Yeah,
teach that balance?
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's awesome that you asked that because I talked to my son about this. I say, listen, you're a great kid. I mean, you're a wonderful kid. You're sweet. You serve in church. You're a good football player. I need you to be a dog on the field. I don't need you to be that nice kid on the field. You're competing. You want to play in college like daddy.
Absolutely.
You have to compete. You ain't got to be no nice guy. You're not mama's little boy right now. Okay, you number 7, and you the
Yes,
baddest
sir.
thing out there, right?
Right.
And so it's kind of
Yes, sir.
that same mindset. Like when I'm in court, I have heard
Mhm.
myself on recordings. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I'm giving it to
Okay, okay,
him.
okay,
But in
okay.
my real life, I'm pretty soft spoken, right? I'm reserved. And I know that I have to operate in two different worlds. The things that make me great as an advocate, I don't want to cross examine the people in my personal life when I'm trying to ask a question,
Hmm.
right? I can't be the
Hmm.
soft spoken, tender hearted guy when I have a police detective on the stand and I know he's fabricating and I know my client's life is on the line. I'm going to ask him questions and I'm going to get in his grill. But you have to live in a world where you can walk a tightrope. That's what I always would say to people when they would ask me about being a prosecutor. I felt like I was walking a tightrope. I felt like I had some of my colleagues were thinking, like we touched on, you just making that deal because he went to your high school or y'all about the same age. And then I would have the bros in the neighborhood or at the barbershop, man, you working with the cops now. So I was on a tightrope. I didn't have really a home, right? And so you quickly learn that you have to be able to turn it on and off because that's what it requires to be in a high level space, but to still be yourself. Because it makes no sense to have all these accolades and be in these rooms, as you all know, and not be able to be the same person when you're at the family cookout, to not be the same person when you're with your loved ones. So it definitely is something that took time, but also was very necessary in order to just have normalcy in my life. I don't want to walk around as a trial lawyer.
Final thoughts, my brother. What do you want to leave the audience here, man? You fed us a lot. What do you want to leave the audience?
You know, I wanted the audience to just be mindful that you can affect change in our society and our community just by being the best that you can be and being knowledgeable with the people that you touch in your life. I'm not asking anybody to go out across the country and, be an activist. I'm asking for people to look around your neighborhood, to look around your community, to look around your church, to be that person in your community and do what you can. Everybody can't do the same thing. The Bible talks about we all have different gifts. Everybody can't do what I do. And I can't do some of the things that other people do. But I know that my gift was to advocate. My struggles early on in life gave me a heart and a perspective to help other people, right? And so just try to do what you can in your circle and the people who you come into contact with because you're coming into contact with those people for a real reason. And once you start to look at things like that, that's how we affect change. We don't affect change by just reacting when a young person is killed by the police and then it being the topic of the conversation for 3 weeks. We affect change when we see that 8-year old that's a little bit wayward and we try to pour into them or we try to give them a ride home after practice and make sure that they're good. That's how you affect change because you never know. That 8-year old may remember that he came into contact with somebody that cared about him, and it might focus a little bit more in school. So we can affect change by being in our communities and impacting those who the good Lord puts around us. That's what I want to talk about. And that's the opportunity that I've had. So thank you.
You sow a lot into the community, into the state, into the city, and into the country, to be honest with you. How can a Black Executive Perspective podcast help you?
Well, this opportunity is a start. I would love to be able to partner with you all. Definitely, I want your listeners and your viewers to be able to find me, Keith Johnson, Keith B. Johnson Law on Instagram, the Lawyers Lounge podcast, hosted by Keith B. Johnson. It's on all of the streaming networks. You can love the Black Executive podcast, but you can also love the Lawyers Lounge too. We can be brothers in the same
No.
cause, and so definitely it's a great opportunity, and I'm thankful to be able to come on and tell a little bit of my story.
My friend. So listen, just to be fair though, bro, you're absolutely right, bro. And we don't look at ourselves as any competition for anybody. This is a
Hmm.
platform that we put together that we want people to come on and share. And we know that we have people that come on that have their own platform and We want them to prosper as well, because we're all trying to achieve the same things, right? We're all trying to promote, and help other people so they can become successful, and, so they hear other people's stories and recognize it's not just them that's going through these things, that they can overcome as well. So we're going to have some backdoor conversations, me, you, and Chris, in terms of how we can partner, become a lot more tighter. And we want our audience to check out the Lawyer Lounge. I don't have a law degree. Chris don't have a law degree, right? And obviously you're bringing knowledge to the table that we need to be privy to. We need to understand, right? Because you never know, things happen. And, from a law standpoint, you want to be able to stay on top of what's going on so you know your rights, right?
Yes, sir.
But more importantly, man, when we talk about today, we want to thank you for coming on in your busy schedule and sharing with us, man, and really showing that, you may think that you're on a track to go one way, but then God comes up or something happens and it takes you off track, but it doesn't take you from your destiny, right? It's just a little detour to where you are supposed to end up anyway,
That's
right? And so for you to come and share that message, and then all the accolades that you got, when you're on the football field as a DB at 17, you wasn't thinking about prosecuting. You wasn't thinking about being a judge. You wasn't thinking about all those things. And look, boom, 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 right? But the football field taught you, and your parents taught you that discipline and that foundation of hard work and competitiveness that you already had inside you. So we want to thank you for coming on and sharing this inspiring story, my brother. I know I got a lot out of it. I know Chris did as well. And so we're going to have you come back on at some point again to share and talk about these things. But more importantly, we just want to let you know we love you a lot.
Thank you for having me on. Keep doing what you're doing. And definitely, I look forward to partnering in the future and being of any kind of assistance, because we have the same goal, we have the same heart, we have the same mindset and the same mission. And a lot of times we're working so hard in isolation because there's not a lot of us in the room, to be honest with you. But when we can partner together, we get strength, we get inspiration, and we can move mountains. So thank you.
Absolutely. So now I think it's time for
Tony's Tidbit.
All right. And the tidbit today: the greatest setback may be the spark that ignites your true calling, because every trial you face is training for the leader you're becoming. Broken dreams don't end your story. They reveal the destiny God has written for you all along. And you heard that today from our brother, criminal justice attorney, Chris B. Johnson.
We want to make sure that we remind you to tune in to a segment that we love and enjoy called Need to Know with Nsinga. Each week, Dr. Nsinga Burton on a Black Executive Perspective podcast brings her perspectives and dives into timely and crucial topics that shape our community and our world. So you absolutely don't want to miss her fire, her passion, and her energy, and her experience in education that she brings with different topics that range from finance to politics to religion. Dr. Nsinga Burton each week on Need to Know with Nsinga is exactly where you want to be.
Absolutely. And you also don't want to miss the next Pull Up, Speak Up. Our roundtable dives into the most provocative issues, bold, unfiltered voices, sharp perspectives, real talk, and a call to action. You don't want to miss this. It's not an episode, it's a revolution. So check out the next Pull Up, Speak Up here on a Black Executive Perspective podcast.
And then we would be remiss if we didn't always try to remind you to incorporate our call to action, which is LESS, L-E-S-S. Our goal here is to eliminate all forms of discrimination. And to achieve this, we're asking everyone to embrace LESS. The L is for learn. Educate yourself on racial and cultural nuances and learn that it's okay to present both sides of your personality for the greater good.
And then after you learn, you have the letter E, which stands for empathy. Once you've learned about other people from different racial cultures and nuances, now you should be more empathetic because you can put yourself in their shoes.
And then the first S stands for share. Share your insights and enlighten others. Don't hide it, divide it. Make sure that you collaborate and join things like this, these types of conversations, and share them with folks that you know need this good news.
And then the final S stands for stop. You want to stop discrimination as it walks in your path. So if Aunt Jenny or Uncle Joe says something that's inappropriate at the Sunday dinner table, instead of sitting there laughing in or being shocked that they say it and being quiet, you say, Aunt Jenny, Uncle Joe, we don't believe that. We don't say that. And you stop it right there. So if everyone can incorporate less, LESS will build a more fair, more understanding world. And we all will see the change that we want to see because less will become more.
Make sure that you stay tuned to future episodes. Check out some of our old episodes. We got some gems in the bucket. So go back and look at those things and comment. Let us know. Go to our website, sign up for the newsletter, leave us a review. Let us know what you'd like to hear about. Subscribe where you're listening to us. And where can they find us, Tony?
My friend, you can find a Black Executive Perspective podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can follow us on our social channels of LinkedIn, X, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram at A Black Exec. For our fabulous guest, criminal defense attorney Keith B. Johnson. For my boy down in Dallas, the co-host with the most, Chris P. Reed. I'm Tony Tidbit. We talked about it. We learned about it. We laughed about it. We're going to continue to strive and thrive about it. We love you. And guess what? We're out.
A Black Executive Perspective.